In second degree, we initiate the hands again, but we teach symbols which you are allowed to use as a second degree practitioner, and they therefore amplifying the energy to give mental treatments, a specific mental treatment which operates at a subconscious level, and one which allows you to send Reiki at a distance. So you no longer have to treat a person on a Reiki table. I can send it to you across the room, or I can send it to you in China, or I can send it to you a few hours before, or when you were a child, or I can send it to situations to have them resolve or integrate. And of course you can treat plants and animals and anything you wish. We can clear the energy in the room. Any application you can think of for benign positive energy, that's what it's for. So that's a bit of a bender, because if you're sort of, as a first degree practitioner, you're sort of used to treating a person in a physical sort of immediate way, and you start to get used to the flow of energy, you get almost to feel it or sense it, and you feel after a while of treating people that you kind of get a feeling for what you're doing. And then second degree comes in and it sort of changes everything again, because you've added at least a dimension to what you're doing, like literally. Like, you know, you're no longer bound by time or space. So that's interesting, but it really does actually just operate in the same way, I find. Same effect, same intensity, but broader. So I could, at that level, for instance, so I could give all four of you simultaneously a Reiki treatment just by sending the Reiki, and instead of visualizing that I'm sending it to like you, I just shrink my field of, or expand my field of vision to include 4 people, and then send the Reiki. So that's interesting. I mean, from a an impact ability. And I mean, in terms of physics, there have been experiments to explore non-locality. I mean, relativity itself is a multi-dimensional explanation for how space and time are linked. But there have been experiments that have used photons, and particle accelerators are a different way of tracking this, where, and what I mean by non-locality is things happening in 2 places at this, one thing being in 2 places at the same time. That would be a non-local event. That does not fit into the regular way that we think of the universe. It's common sense to think that one thing cannot be in 2 places at the same time. But how can I have an effect? How can I have an effect on you if you're in China? But I can through this particular channeling method. So that's a non-local event, right? If a person is not in front of me receiving a treatment, how are they having the effect from that treatment? But actually, it's to have somebody in front of me receiving a treatment using an energetic modality is also sort of a non-local event. It's just a simple subset of giving a treatment to somebody in China. I mean, what am I doing? I just have my hands on the person. I'm not doing anything physical, but they're experiencing an effect, which has not been explained yet using a scientific method. There are a lot of trials and lots of double-blind and triple-blind studies that have been used in Reiki, and you can pull it up on the online medical journals and nursing journals and so on. There's been lots of studies done, but the actual mechanism by which it's being done is not yet explained. Like, for instance, if I put out a pharmaceutical, I know how that works, because somebody did the chemistry, tested it on cells in some system, and then ran up the trials through rats and then large animals, then went through all the stages of clinical trials. And I understand all the mechanisms and all the side effects and mechanics of how that works. So, but in Reiki, we don't quite understand the mechanics of it yet. And when I had an opportunity to participate in a double-blind study, when I was studying in Saskatoon, I rushed down to my Reiki master to tell her all about this. And she said, well, but why do you want to do that? And I was excited because this was sort of feeding a passion. This was sort of, to me, helping me explain something that had become a passion for me, but was also feeding my need to know from a rational point of view. Somehow I was going to splice both worlds together, and that was exciting. But when she asked the question, I immediately understood, well, I don't really need to know. I don't really need to know the answer to that. All I need to know is my hands were on, there was an effect, and if I don't have my hands on, there isn't an effect. So I'm sure that opens up quite a few different areas of interest or possible questions.
Does someone have a question first? I guess one thing that was actually brought up in the last talk that we had, like a child with its mother, if it sees its mother in pain, the child will just innately, intuitively put its hands on and stuff like that. Now, what's your take on the idea that we actually have to be instructed on a modality such as Reiki in order for the healing to actually occur? Do we not have the ability to heal just within us already, so to speak?
Sure, of course. The simplest, historically, there, all through time, there have been people that have been known to have a healing effect by laying their hands on somebody. I mean, even in religiously tinged, the tradition of religious stories, we get a lot of healing stories or legends or whatever through those channels. We also get it just from various Aboriginal cultures. There's always somebody or somewhere in the tribe that sort of has a tendency or more of a preponderance to that kind of a healing skill set, regardless of whether it's just intuition and they know which herbs and how to use them, or whether they actually have more of a physical ability to heal. That's not something that is incompatible with the idea of Reiki. What Reiki is, what happens at the time of the initiation is really I'm putting, as a master just means teacher. It's not like master. It comes from a Japanese tradition, so that's why we use that term. It's just like I'm putting an antenna into your hand, and you're able to tune to that frequency of energy, if you will. I mean, it's not actually accurate at a very subtle level, but it's good enough to explain what's happening. So you're channeling Reiki. You're not necessarily laying on of hands like Saint whoever did. Maybe they were doing that. But this is what I teach and what I transmit, and then allow you to transmit to your clients would be Reiki. So that effect comes from this tradition. That's all. So there's no claim to fame as such.